Cool. Alrighty. Oh well, with that, I'll welcome everybody this evening to our online Q&A forum for our annual plan and the consultation that we're going through at the moment. I would like to introduce everyone here tonight. Obviously, I'm Adrian, your local mayor. Joining me tonight, I've got James Thomas, Deputy Mayor, Don McLeod, Chief Executive, Manaia Tiwiata, our Group Manager of Business Support, Lania Rushbrook, Finance and Business Services Manager, and Erin Bates, Strategic Partnerships and Governance Manager. So how this meeting's going to work tonight is I'll just give a brief intro into the annual plan. Attendees will be able to type your questions into the Q&A function, your chat function. Erin will go through those questions and read them out for us to answer, and we'll try to work through them as best we can, just depending on how many questions come through. I'll lead the answering and we'll defer to my other panelists as required. And if we have more questions than what we have time for, we will make sure that they're answered and put on our website with our FAQs, our frequently asked questions for everyone to see. So with that, we'll kick off the evening. With our long-term plan in 2021, the 23-24 financial year fell into that slot. So this will be year 3 of the long-term plan, and it identified that we had a spike in rates of 11.81%. Now, that was primarily with the new curbside contract coming on stream, but obviously now things, sort of the economic climate's changed in that time, and we're now faced with going out with an increase of 16.9% total increase. Obviously, this will affect properties differently depending on the services you receive. So those in town receiving water and curbside, it will distort the percentage increase quite a bit for some. Obviously, it's a shock, it's a challenge, and you know, we're all ratepayers too. We've got family and friends all caught up in this as well, obviously, and we've asked staff to go through their budgets with fine-tooth comb, obviously, and trim where they can. And this is where we've landed at a 16.9. Probably to just give a summary of the variety of reasons why why there's this increase. Obviously, the first one was the new contract for the curbside collection. It's a 10-year contract, so the current contract finishes this in 2023, and the work on working on a new contract and procuring a new tender started in 2021 when we went out for consultation in that long-term plan to discuss what it was that we would be seeking to provide to the community. Now, in this time, there's been a robust procurement process followed, and we also have had directive from the government. So what's happening now is that in 2027, we'll be required to provide a food waste collection. And in fact, all councils will be required to provide curbside collections. That is the way going forward. So while we aren't at 2027 yet, it made sense to begin the food waste collection now rather than go for a variation, which would be an expensive process to carry out for the 2027 year. The food waste collection works out about $1.42 a week. So with moving to wheelie bins, we've reduced it to fortnightly. It will sort of offset itself a little bit. With the water services, we've faced increasing costs around electricity. Our contract for electricity actually rolled off, and we're into a new contract and seeing significant rise in electricity, which I think a lot of us that have contracts would be seeing that in our own household and businesses. The other thing is the increasing cost of chemicals. Chlorine's also gone up significantly, as has the regulatory environment that we are now working in with Taumata Arowai, the regulator, and we're required to do a lot more testing. So that all adds cost to our water supply to our towns. Obviously, yeah, those are the two key things. We've obviously trimmed our budget as much as we can. We have the cost of replacement, or for those into accounting, the depreciation element of our business, where we must have funding for replacing those assets. That's also a significant cost when valuations are done, and obviously the cost of replacing those assets is increasing, so with inflation. So that also affects our depreciation that we must recover. So just in summary, we've got inflation, insurance and interest. Obviously, this is affecting everybody. And I guess for us as a council, when we were discussing this, there was a fine balance between making short-term decisions that, while it's a short fix now, it would impact to understand how it'll affect us in the coming years. So it's likened to the term kicking the can down the road. I guess, yeah, we'll probably say that presumably you've read what's on the council website in the annual plan document, and obviously we want people to have their say and put their submissions in, and you can do that on the website, or you can go in and pick up a form from our officers and complete it and hand it to them. So that closes on the 26th of May at 4 p.m. So yeah, that's where we're at. I'll open up for questions. We'll close at 7:55 and we'll see how we go. So we'll open up for questions. Thanks, Erin.
Thanks, Adrian. So I just had a question here around, is this dictated from central government? So I think this was in reference particularly to solid waste, but perhaps you could talk a little bit about the central government initiatives around both solid waste and also in the water space.
Yeah, so with the curbside, it's definitely being a direction from the Ministry for the Environment. The challenge we have is around landfills and how rapidly they're filling. And a lot of recyclable, reusable material is finding its way to landfills. So the whole drive here is to, obviously with the food waste bucket, that creates emissions. So there's emissions trading scheme, there's the government levies for waste going to landfill. So by diverting recyclable material out of what goes to in the waste bin, or what has been the bag, because we're obviously going from bags to bins, that will put us in a better space long term, because we need to be able to recycle what we can, and that's where with the food bucket. And I know a lot of people do compost, but this is going to a commercial composting facility, so bones and meat, all those things that you shouldn't be putting in your home compost will be able to go to this facility. And it is being driven by the government. I know Waihou don't provide curbside collection, and they will be, they're already starting to look into it, because obviously that's going to be with 2027 as well. And was water the other thing, Erin?
Yes, if you could just maybe elaborate on that as well.
Yeah, so I guess in the water space, it's not so much about the three waters reforms per se, it's around Taumata Arowai, the regulator that's been agreed to by, that was set out from the government, and that has increased testing, the volume of testing that we have to do to ensure that our water is safe to drink. And of course that's added additional cost as well. So next question.
Thanks, Adrian. Question around, was there an option to have the food waste collection delayed and also the cost delayed as well?
No, the reality is that this contract ends in the coming months, the current contract, and when we went out for procurement, it was set at a date to start. So no, there is no opportunity to delay, because once this contract ends, the new one will begin. So there is no pushing that out. Next one.
Okay, another question. My rates are up more than 20%. So what is a long-term plan for rates increases in future years? Can we expect such big jumps in the next 10 years?
Well, I know in the next 3 years, just from the long-term plan that we did in 2021, that we had set a cap of 6%, that we didn't want it going above 6%, knowing that, and of course recognising that this next financial year was going to have a spike of 11.8, but the following years it was set to be near a 5.5. Obviously, economic climate will dictate how that goes. So I don't want to prejudge what the levels would be, but I would certainly would not be happy if we were going out with large increases year on year, because that wouldn't be great when it comes to affordability. So I hope that answers the question around the next 3 years anyway. But we're going into the long-term plan in the coming months, and that's where we'll be going out for submissions for what people think of some ideas around levels of service, because although we can't discuss it in this annual plan, working on the long-term plan, we'll be able to consider our levels of service, and that could include like pool hours, library hours, how often we mow the lawns and things like that, clear the rubbish bins. Is there a appetite to reduce costs by reducing some of those services? And this is the challenge that we obviously face around what it is that we want to keep our places looking, to keep our towns and villages looking good. So yeah, that'll be a part of our conversation we invite people to take part in.
Thanks,
Next
Adrian.
question.
Yeah, another one around the water area. So if Taumata Arowai want to do additional testing, can they not fund that themselves?
No, unfortunately, they are a regulator, a government department, and that's what they require. And so that is what we unfortunately the cost we have to incur. So sadly, no, we can't pass the cost on.
And then another just follow-up question on the rubbish. So who has got the new contract for the rubbish collection?
Waste management. Well-known business in New Zealand, been here for a long time.
Question here from someone that says that rates are going up to 20.17%, so not the average, as this is high for many people. What would you suggest they could potentially do to manage themselves to manage that and reduce their costs to afford that?
Good question. And I guess that's for people to probably their own individual circumstances will dictate that. So I don't know where they may see those opportunities. I guess that's something to sit around the kitchen table and say, okay, well, what can we do to do this? I think one of the things I should suggest that if it is hard, if it is difficult to meet your rates bill, especially quarterly, to call into the office and see if there's a way of perhaps spreading payments, or at least giving a heads up that you might be struggling to pay, because we don't, like that 10%, people talk about the 10% penalty, and that's if people don't pay. But if you go in and talk to staff and find a way forward, because sometimes just some time payment, setting up time payment might help smooth it rather than get that big bill every quarter. But yeah, it's certainly something that we all have to think about when we, because rates at the end of the day are a tax. It's a blunt instrument, and yeah, we feel your pain, of higher rates increases.
Thanks, Adrian. I just wanted to refer to a question that came in via email today. So someone noted that given staff are council's biggest asset, I'd like to know what portion of the rates increase will go towards staff salaries to ensure they can keep up with the rate of inflation and the standard of living doesn't drop. So in response to that, I can advise that council pays all staff at least the living wage. They're budgeted for an additional 7 positions across council, but only one of those is funded from rates. So that's obviously a small portion of the increase. And the other positions are funded from other sources, including government funding. So that's the answer to that question. Next question, Adrian, can we have the option to self-manage our own waste management with a local, cheaper provider?
No, that's one of the things that the government is actually directing. That, yeah, we have no option for the opt-out. Yeah, to best describe that is there is no option for the council service as a standard practice throughout New Zealand. That will be standard, and that's where I guess that with the opportunity for our local services that are currently in that space, that they will be able to move into the commercial area and cover their recycling and waste needs.
Thanks, Adrian. A question here, is central government going to take over resource management? I presume that's in relation to the Resource Management Act provisions.
So they're working in that space at the moment around the reform of it. Yeah, not too sure where that question's leading to, unless anyone else want to answer that. Can I defer to anyone? It's Dennis, maybe? Because it's, yeah.
Mayor Adrian, all as I would say is that we're going through a process at the moment that's very drawn out. We will be looking at some sort of joint committee that will be spread across the Waikato. Each council will still have a function that will put information into that, and they will continue to do resource consents until such time as the joint committee has developed a district plan for the Waikato. We then also have to go through spatial planning, and there's a lot of work in there. The best knowledge that we have is it's likely to be 10 years before we get to a stage where the spatial plans are in place and the Waikato-wide district plan is in place. So as a council, we have to continue working on through the RMA as it stands at the moment until such time as we get to that space.
Thanks, Dennis. Hopefully that answers that person's question. They can always ask another one if it wasn't what they were expecting. Thanks, Erin.
Great. Thanks, Adrian. Don, this is a question for you around whether staff pay will be linked to CPI.
Thanks, Erin. No. Staff pay is established by a very formal, structured system, which identifies market value for all particular roles, and we apply that, and it's a system used by many local authorities in the country, and it takes into account both private sector and the government sector, and of course the local government sector. So we look at those figures and we establish our pay rates based on those.
Great,
now,
thanks.
We don't know what that percentage will be. It will be established, as I say, by that very structured process.
Great, thanks, Don. Lani, a question for you. What is the estimated rates increase in terms of net value?
So the total rate increase was just over 7 million in total. That's our 16.9%.
Great, thanks, Vania. A question for you, Adrian. Can we delay some of the increase until next year to spread it out?
Yes, that's a really good question that obviously councillors will consider if people want to put that submission in. The way of doing that would be to borrow for the deficit, and of course that comes with a cost of borrowing. So we need to understand what impact that has on the increase next year, because obviously to do that it comes at a cost, and yeah, we should consider understanding what that means. At this point in time, we were really balancing up whether it was a short-term sugar hit or that would give us pain down the track. But it's certainly something we consider if that's what people would like to submit on, because that's what some councils do. We've tended to not borrow for our groceries, is the term that we use. But yeah, if you feel strongly that we should be doing that, well, by all means, put forward a submission for us to consider that.
Thanks, Adrian. Why do I have to pay for rubbish collection when I live rurally and don't receive a collection? So we aren't servicing the rural areas unless you're in the villages around the district. So you need to check online to see if you're getting that targeted rate added to your rates, and yeah, ask customer services or refer to any of us. You can contact one of us councillors and myself, and we can check in to see whether where you sit in the
in the grey area of where the collections go, because obviously they do collect in the villages, which you could say is rural. So yeah, it just depends where you live, but you won't be charged for a curbside collection. That is a targeted rate.
Thanks, Adrian. Someone's asked that they know rebates are available for some ratepayers, so could there be some sort of rebate made available for single income households? And this would include those who are working and on a single income.
So I might have to defer that one to Lania. Are you familiar in the remission space?
The rates rebate scheme is actually run by the government, Department of Internal Affairs. So we're sort of at their whim as to what their thresholds and the amount of the rebate is. But it's definitely a good way for people who are on those lower incomes to get some relief. And I believe the new next year's applications open around August. But you can talk to our customer service team and they will set up appointments and help you work through that process to see if you qualify.
Great, thanks, Lania. Hope that was helpful to that the person that asked that question. Next one, Erin.
Thank you. So how is the benefit of the increase apportioned across the district? So for example, how will ratepayers in Morrinsville benefit from the increase apart from the rubbish collection?
We rate district-wide, we don't rate by ward. And then you've got you have your general rate that's across everybody, your UAGC that's across everybody, and then you have your targeted rates for those that receive the services. So it's the same for everyone across the district.
Thanks, Adrian. If we were to borrow now to offset the rate increase, how much difference is that likely to make to the current 16.9% increase?
So we haven't actually discussed that, and it would probably not make a very big difference at all. But we can probably delve into that a bit more and give some answers on our FAQs. So note that down, Erin, just to give an example, perhaps. Thank you.
A question around, would it be useful to do an advertising blitz leading up to close-off date to make sure that people do submit, or that most people do submit?
So we, the comms team, put it on Anteno, it's on Facebook, it'll be in the papers in our Council in Focus. So I think we're covering as many avenues as we can to encourage people to put forward a submission.
And I guess linked to that, can I come along and listen to the hearing on the 7th of June?
Absolutely, it's a public meeting, and obviously we welcome people to come and speak to their submission if they would like to. You can have that option of presenting. A lot of people just choose to do a written submission and not present, but you're welcome to, definitely.
A question around someone owning a business in town and they'd like to know why you are unable to collect rubbish anymore from the CBD areas.
Okay, so we've withdrawn from the commercial zone for a number of reasons. One of them is that our curbside collection is really designed for a residential customer. I think you probably appreciate that different businesses have different waste streams and different recycling streams. And our one size fits all is troublesome enough for a residential person. We have outliers of people that create more rubbish than others on the other scale. So for the commercial, we felt that they would get better value by engaging with a private company to that will be able to better meet their needs, whether it's lots of cardboard or lots of glass or all those different things that come with different retail, different food outlets. So it just was a way of, and also means that the private business that's currently in the waste space, because we were monopolising the recycling, and of course now because we've gone into bins for waste, the comment has been made that we're now monopolising the waste. So by giving opening that up to a commercial provider is probably a fair way of giving them an opportunity to continue in that space in the towns. given that they'll have a lot of business out in the rural areas anyway. Thank you. Next one.
Yeah, so how can you commit to a waste collection system when the rate increase to cover is now only being consulted on? Are bins already paid for?
Okay, so this was consulted on back in the long-term plan in 2021, and the government are pressing for everyone to run the same sort of system throughout New Zealand and go from bags to bins and go to a fortnightly collection for their waste. So yeah, the consultation was actually done in 2021.
And another question on solid waste. What happens to the bins currently used for businesses in the business zone? Do business owners get to keep them?
Not too sure about that. Has anyone got, I'm pretty sure that they would be, no, I haven't got that answer. So unless somebody else can answer that one for me, I haven't had that one before. So we'll put that on our FAQs.
we can find out that answer and pop it up on our website for people to see.
Yeah.
It's
a good question though.
It is a good question. So if the 16.9% increase isn't the same for everybody, how do I find out what mine is?
So if you go online and find our annual plan, and you'll find the link to you just pop link to where you put in your address. You just put your number, your house number, and your street. Don't put your street name. Don't put Finlater Street or Lawn Street. Just put Lawn or Finlater. You don't have to write the word street, and that'll bring up your address to click on to get that projected rate for the coming year.
Thanks, Adrian. A question around water. Why is the cost of drinking water going up by so much?
Well, the challenge there is around obviously the cost of replacing infrastructure and the cost of electricity, because obviously water needs to be pumped around in its reticulation systems. And then, of course, we have the cost of treating the water to make sure it's drinkable and safe. So you've got your chlorine and other chemicals to dose it, to balance it for the filtration. And then obviously there's the increased testing to ensure that it is safe to drink. Is there anything else we can add to that, team? I think that pretty much covers the increased cost of water to our urban areas. Don't think there's much more that I can add than that.
Thanks, Adrian. Just another solid waste query. I currently pay a private collector to collect my rubbish. So why do I have to pay for the council service if I choose not to use it?
So that's entirely up to you. It is as I've said before, the government are requiring us to provide a curbside collection. And I know a lot of people have used the private businesses to pick their waste rather than buy bags. Of course, people don't have to buy bags anymore, and that cost in the targeted rate will includes the collection with your bin. So yeah, I know there's a few challenges there for people, as depending on how much waste they create. But the idea is to take the food out, because 30% of what's been going to landfill, and we've done audits on wheelie bins as well as our own council bags, is that 30% of what's in those bins is food waste. So if we can take out 30% out of there, then a fortnightly collection will actually help offset some of that capacity or the overfilling of the bins. And of course, these new bins will have clips on them, so that if it's windy and they tip over, especially the recycling bins, they won't fall open and spread it everywhere. So that's one upside to what we're providing this coming year.
Thanks, Adrian. I just wanted to invite any other participants whether there are any other questions that anyone would like to ask. Thank you. I've got a question here. Has there been any thought given to improving the dog pound facility in Waihou? dog registration fees are high and I do not get any benefit other than knowing that we have a 5-day-a-week animal control officer. Or do we have 2? I feel like we have 2, but I will defer to you on that one, Adrian.
Yep, so we do have 2. Dennis, would you like to answer that one?
Certainly, Mayor Adrian. The Waihou Dog Pound facility is quite new. It's not very old at all, and it's quite a modern facility. So there is no thoughts of upgrading it at the moment. We do have 2 animal control officers. However, one of those animal control officers only works till 3:30. I keep a regular check on the complaints that are coming in, and if we are not managing the complaints, then we obviously need more resources. But currently we are managing most of the complaints. I think 98% within the 10 working days that we've set ourselves. So at the moment, we seem to be catering that. Of course, any extra staff and all the rest of it gets sheeted back to the registration fee, because 80% of the cost of the animal control function has to be paid by the registration fee. So we try to keep it to a minimum. So that's probably about what we could say at the moment.
Thanks, Dennis. So, got any more, Erin?
I do. Who supplies the district power for council services, and can we negotiate better deals?
Lania, can I defer that one to you? It's an operational matter.
I can try and answer it as best as I know. Council actually uses a broker to broker our insurance, and it's our power costs, and it's a 3-year contract that we enter into, and it's not a single power supplier. That we use a range of suppliers to get the best spot rates and that sort of thing. So yeah, I don't know if anyone else has got anything to add to that.
No.
Sorry, Mayor Adrian. The only thing I'd add to that is we procure our power collectively with other local authorities. So it's not just our power. Most of the Waikato local authorities use the same broker. So we try and get economies of scale when we go out to the market.
Excellent. Thanks, Manai, for adding that in. I hope that answers that person's question. Thanks, Erin. Got another one?
I do, yes. So when do I have to have my submission in by, and when will it be considered?
Okay, so we've got our submissions close on the 26th, this Friday at 4 o'clock, and staff will collate our submissions, and we will go to a hearing, and it escapes me what date we're doing that. It's in June, obviously, and then we will have the hearing and deliberate, and 28th of May we'll be making the decision.
7th of June.
7th of June, that's what we want. Thank you, James. So that's when we're having our hearing on with the submissions. So people are welcome to attend. Obviously, it'll be live streamed as well. So either or, you're welcome to sit in and hear it.
Thank you. A couple of solid waste questions. So the first question is, do we need to pay for our new rubbish bins coming in September?
I think that's built into the cost. Lania, have you got the specifics around that?
Yeah, no, it's built into the cost of the contract.
Yeah. So it'll be a standard price. It's not bigger in year one, or just to add to that question, it's just a set fee and it's built into that cost over a period of years.
Yeah, we've got some one-off implementation costs in the first year that won't be repeated in the second year, like education programs and the cost to get out and deliver these bins and that sort of thing. But yeah, no, going forward, it's built into the targeted rate that people pay.
Cool. So they won't expect to pay more next year, perhaps with those setup costs in the first year. Although I guess that'll depend on the CPI going forward. Yeah.
I think that that segues well into someone who just actually asked that question. Does committing to a 10-year rubbish collection service mean it's likely expensive at first but comparatively less expensive later on, or does the rubbish contract cost still ramp up as the contract goes along?
Yeah, so it is attached, tagged to the CPI as to what the costs are. So that will change over time, potentially, as it has done in the last 10 years.
And another question of that vein, what size bins are being delivered to households? Is the rubbish bin the same size as the recycling bin?
No, it's a 120 litre, and so that's the half size down from that, and it will hold 2 3/4 pink bags. So yeah, and my daughter assures me that, having come from Auckland, that she can squeeze a heck of a lot more in a wheelie bin than she can in a bag. So maybe close to 3 bags would fit. 3 of our pink bags would fit in the wheelie bin. So for those that put out a bag a week, it's pretty straightforward. Those putting in probably 2 bags a week, mind you, take the food out, there's an offset there. So I would hope that most people will be able to manage with the 120 litre bin on a fortnightly collection.
So a question in relation to pool facilities. So someone says it'd be awesome to have a pool open year round in Te Aroha or Morrinsville. Is there a possibility of having an indoor pool facility in either of these 2 towns?
Well, I guess that's all part of the long-term plan discussion, and people are welcome to put in a submission in our long-term plan. Obviously, we can't do everything at once, and I guess if there's a lot of people looking for that sort of facility, then I welcome people to submit in our long-term plan in the coming few months and get it built in, because obviously we plan out for 30 years. And although we review it every 3 years, there's sort of that 10-year plan looking out to 30. So, yep, encourage people to make a submission and see if it can be built into our long-term plan. Of course, the thing is people have to pay for these things. You know, that's the catch with rates is what we can pay for. Yep, next one.
Thanks, Mary Adrian. A question here, basically commenting around, the cost of living crisis and, mortgage rates and things, and the effect that a rates increase can have in terms of people's budgets, and asking how likely or how often would MPDC actively force sale of a home for unpaid rates?
Oh, I think that would be a very, very last ditch thing. Lania, can you give some any detail on that? I really wouldn't. That wouldn't be something that we would do. I don't think we've ever. It's only when people have abandoned a house, I think, that we end up going down that track. But Lania, can you give any light on that?
I can only think of one in the past 5 years. Manoa might have had a better recollection than me, but no, it's not. There's certainly a lot of other avenues we would take before we ever got to that point.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the last ditch. Yeah, it'd have to be pretty long term. Where we try to be have as much empathy as possible for people that find themselves in that difficult situation, and it's where we encourage people to come to us first before it builds up, because I know it's easy. Well, it's not easy. I think the thing is it's extremely probably difficult for people when they reach that point, and you tuck the bill in the drawer, and of course it doesn't go away. So I really do encourage people, if there is a struggle with paying rates, to go to the council office and see what options might be available to you. Yep, that'd be about what I could recommend, because you want to avoid that 10% penalty. That's the challenge. So if you're more proactive, it'll be a better outcome overall for everybody.
And I've just got a question here. Is there any update on when the recreation ground refurbishment is starting?
That's a master plan. James, would you like to give a bit of background information on that and where that's heading, since you were very involved with the rec ground?
Thanks, Mary Adrian. Yeah, I have been involved with the master plan, but at this stage, a lot of the options going forward will be partnerships and things. So, for example, we're still in dialogue with Sport Waikato to see if there's any synergies that we can use with them. So we haven't obviously got the funding to be doing everything we can at the rec ground, and it's a question of trying to get a little bit of momentum. We've got some funding right now to start on putting a path through to encourage more access through and more usage of the current facilities. But I mean, we are pretty much in constant conversation with the current major stakeholders, which is pretty much football and cricket are the major ones. I've certainly seen ultimate frisbee and things down there lately, and so we have got concepts there, but yeah, it's just trying to develop them now. And like I say, that's going to take a bit of conversation about sports groups and community groups that want to go there. And I think we'll start, once we start seeing a little bit of movement, I think we'll get a little bit of momentum. So the concept plans are there, but there's no strict financial outlay at this point.
Yeah, it really is a strategy, so that if we, I guess to add to that is if there's something comes up and it isn't in there, well, how might it fit? So we don't want to be making ad hoc decisions when we've got a master plan in place. And I think that's the critical point going forward as to how that great piece of land develops over time. So thanks, James. That was great. Next question, Erin.
Our next question is, do you think it's appropriate to spend over $8 million on the Te Aroha pools in the current financial climate?
James, would you like to answer the SPA question? So that
They did say, sorry, this is for the SPA, not the pools, yes. Erin, can you confirm that?
Yeah, well, it just says pools, but I presume it's referring to the SPAs.
So it's referring to the $18 million in the long-term plan?
Yes.
Yeah, and there's 8.4 in the which was put into next year, which has been dropped out.
Okay, no, that's fine. Just clarifying that. Thanks for the opportunity, Adrian. So look, we are at the business end, if you like, of developing a business case for the SPA. So whilst we've got money in long-term plans, we are nowhere near committing to anything at this point in time. We've got to weigh up. That's why we've got a business plan going on. We need to weigh up whether an investment in the SPA, which is more than just a SPA, it's an investment in the district. So can we get visitors in the district? Can they stay? Can they spend money? And that's a bonus to all our three towns. But we are nowhere near there at this point in time. So we are going through the process. We are near the end of what has been about a 3-year working group process. So at this stage, it could be zero. We literally do not know, but that will be communicated as we go.
And if it's bigger, it'll be likely to go out for consultation anyway. We'll need to. So that's great. Thanks, James. Got another one for us, Erin?
Yeah, sure do. Someone's saying it's disappointing as a person living alone who recycles, including all these soft plastics, that they pay the same for rubbish collection as a family of 5 in the same street, and the same thing with water. So is there any chance that MPDC might consider rebates for single occupants who aren't retired and are kind of cross-subsidizing others?
Yeah, good question. And I guess that's the thing with a curbside collection. To get the best price we can, we sort of sit in the middle. So there's always going to be those outliers that do manage their waste carefully, or they are living alone, versus those that perhaps aren't as careful with their waste and have a lot of people. Because a lot of people doesn't always mean that there's a lot of waste. I think it's down to the individual and how whether they're a waste warrior or not. I know of a family of 4 that where the mum is very much a waste warrior, and she probably puts out very little waste in the end. She's very judicious on the packaging that when she purchases things. So yeah, I empathise with a single dweller in that space. And you are an outlier to the middle of the where the majority sit. So I do apologise that we are unable to provide a rebate for the service.
I've received a follow-up question in relation to the Te Aroha Spas. Is there a possibility that they could introduce a local residents discount for use?
That hasn't been discussed at this point in time. I think that's something that's obviously in the discussion around the spas. We don't have a definitive answer on that.
So at this point, I just want to check if there's any other questions as we're starting to draw towards the end of our Q&A time. Are there any other questions anyone had for me, Adrian, or Councillor Thomas?
With that, if there's nothing much doing, I really appreciate people participating in this online forum tonight. It's a first for us, and really want to hear if it's an effective way of engaging with us rather than, especially after hours. Really look forward to the feedback from this session. I know there's always little things that we can do better, like I could look at a screen probably when I answer my questions, and I was quite conscious of that for a while, just as my own feedback to myself. So yeah, just really look forward to the participants in this forum tonight, and getting their feedback on how we might be able to do this better, or if it was worthwhile. Yeah, would really appreciate that. So have we got any more questions coming through?
We've actually got some lovely positive comments coming through, Adrian, which I'm just replying to. People have really enjoyed people being available. They found it an excellent, I'm just going to read them out actually, although I won't be able to reply to them all, but that it's an excellent forum. It's much easier to engage as someone who works full time, and obviously pay rates as well. And someone suggested that the hearings be after business hours as a consideration.
Yeah, I guess that the challenge with that is that we have staff. There's a lot of staff involved with running a hearing, and so we sort of have to balance our costs around business hours and after hours. But certainly hear your comments, and you will be able to watch it. That will be available to watch as a recording anyway. So yeah, apologise to those people that do work during work hours that we can't meet everybody's needs, but we do have to balance the staff time as well, and so the business hours are the best time to run our hearings. But thank you very much for that feedback. So nothing else to add. Has anyone got any other further comments? It's a really tough time. Well, if there's any other questions, this is a really, really hard time for us. We've never ever had a rate increase of this magnitude before. I've been on council 6 years, and we hadn't even had to go out to consultation on our annual plan. Probably should add that we still sit in the bottom quartile of the level of rates across New Zealand, and apparently Taxpayers Union have a list as well. So it's where councils sit with their rates. And I know this is a significant increase, but it's this rate rise, but it still has us sitting in a more favourable position than some councils across New Zealand. So if that's where we're at 10 to 8. So if there's no further questions, we were going to wind up about 5:02. So we're looking like we've answered everything. So yeah, just really encourage people to put in their submissions. That's the best way to get your point across. It doesn't disappear. It sits in the system and is recorded, obviously, in our data. So with that, Erin, are we all clear?
Yes, we are. I've just replied to a number of people again, just reiterating what a great platform they've found this to be, and yeah, I guess thanking everyone for their time out of hours to make the time to do this. So that's really great feedback. As this, yeah, as you said, was a test to see how how this went. So that's really great to hear that people have found it worthwhile.
Because to balance forums and halls and stuff like that, it's time, you know, we've got to go across the 3 districts, and we are quite pressed for time with this consultation process, because we have to obviously have it set by the end of June, so it does take time to organise and have an effective consultation. And so, yeah, really appreciate people's engagement tonight with this, and look forward to perhaps developing it further and fine-tuning it, and because I'm really keen to engage with the community. Consultation is an interesting word, and I know my council is keen to engage with our community to build understanding and make sure that we are in touch with the people in our communities. So thank you all.